One of Rishi Sunak's famous 5 pledges is to stop the boats. So it's perhaps unfortunate for the PM that, of course, we reached a landmark today. GB News can reveal that 25,000 migrants have now crossed the Channel in small boats so far this year. We know the drill, don't we? 8 million quid a day on hotels. Whether or not we can actually deport any of these people, what's going on. I'm joined now by Sir Robert Goodwill, who is the Conservative MP for Scarborough and Whitby, and I've got Sir John Redwood as well, who's the Tory MP for Woking. So I'm the only person who hasn't been knighted yet, by the looks of things, which makes me feel complete. Only a matter of time. Yeah, I'll have to hold you to that. Look, Robert, I'll start with you, OK? In fact, I speak to people in Scarborough quite regularly who say they've been badly affected by the use of asylum seeker hotels in that area. So what's going on? Why haven't we got to grips with this yet? Surely you need to.
Well, the hotels in Scarborough have been used for Afghan refugees, and they've actually been welcomed by local people. And most of those have now moved on to permanent accommodation. So we didn't have quite the same problem as some of the other parts of the country. I mean, the numbers are worrying, but it's down on last year. And I think we're all sort of hanging out waiting to see what the Supreme Court judgment is, because the appeal court was a 2-1 decision. And I think if the Rwanda scheme can go ahead, that will be a real disincentive to people to pay these horrible people smugglers to actually bring them to the United Kingdom when they're in a safe country already, namely France.
It's a key point, that. And Sir John, what would you do if the Supreme Court says that we can't do Rwanda?
Well, I would legislate. I think we have to assert ourselves. And I and others did make a suggestion when they were planning the last lot of legislation that there would be an amendment you could make, which would be a clear instruction to our courts that they had to obey the law as Parliament had decided it and not refer it on to an overseas court. And I think that would be a necessary step if our own court doesn't reflect the will of the British people, which I'm sure is to have a safe haven to send people to who come here illegally.
One of the massive debates raging at the moment at this conference, and just with people around really, is about the ECHR. There is a sense at the moment, I think, of desperation when it comes to what's happening in the Channel and the amount of taxpayers' money that's being used, or some may say wasted. Where are you on the ECHR?
I think it would send out a very negative message, because many of the countries in the former Soviet Union, in the east of Europe, you know, their human rights are something that are being eroded every day, being attacked every day. Countries like Belarus and the European Court of Human Rights and the Council of Europe, it's something they really hold dear. So I think it could send out some
They're not in the ECHR, though, are they, Belarus?
No, they're not, and neither are the Russian Federation.
Yeah.
And that's but the Council of Europe are very strong on criticising some of the human rights abuses that go in those places.
Can I just ask with that, though, why is that any of our concern? How does that affect people in Britain right now who are seeing people come across the Channel that we can't get rid of? I mean, what's Belarus got to do with us?
Well, the European Court of Human Rights, the standards that many of us want to see in terms of democracy and freedom are something that are protected by that court. And those countries, I think, for us to leave, they would certainly be seen as undermining people in some of those countries.
That's the argument, isn't it, Sir John? I'll bring you in. That if we were to pull out of the ECHR, if we were to try and get the deterrent that people hope would deter the 25,000 people who crossing English Channel, if we were to pull out the ECHR, we would lose the right to lecture Russia and Belarus on the world stage about human rights abuses, would we?
Well, that's arguable either way. I'm not recommending we do pull out of the whole ECHR. What I'm saying is that we should have a targeted legal intervention through our Parliament where we think it is impeding us in a perfectly legitimate aim to stop this awful people trafficking with the risk to lives and all the other negative effects that we see. And we have done this before without pulling out of the whole ECHR, because we had a finding against us as a country that we needed to give votes to prisoners, and our Parliament said, no, we've considered this, we do not wish to give votes to prisoners, we will not give votes to prisoners, but we're not pulling out of the whole of the ECHR, and that worked perfectly well.
OK, so do you think then that we should be making more noise about this solution? Because at the moment it does appear relatively black and white to your average man and woman, I think, that it's either stay in the ECHR and accept whatever it is that the Supreme Court and then the ECHR tell us that we can and can't do, or we pull out of the thing. But there is a middle ground, isn't there?
Yeah, as John said, we're an independent state, we can legislate. And in particular, what I really find frustrating and annoying about this whole situation is that I was Immigration Minister under David Cameron, and we actually went out to the refugee camps around Syria, and we brought families to the UK, we were prepared for them, we had housing for them. And at the moment, these people are coming across are people chosen by organised criminals, not people who are most in need. 90% of them are young men. There's a lot of women that I think we should be helping around the world.
Where are the women and children is the usual thing that I say whenever I look at one of these boats. And I know that the vast majority of the people who do see these videos say exactly the same thing. Where are the women and children? I mean, we do have a number of German NGOs as well who are apparently operating in the Mediterranean who are, again, I will argue, making it a lot easier for these people smugglers to transport their human cargo.
When we cleared the camp at Songat, there were 750 people there that we took. Of those 750, only 8 were Syrians, and 90% were young men. We really need to reach out. There are people in desperate need of our help. We've done it with the Hong Kong people, we've done it with the Afghans, we've done it with the Ukrainians. So we're not a nation that doesn't understand our obligations. Yeah. But these people are chosen by organised criminals. Yeah. These are people who have money to pay the organised criminals. These are not the most needy people in the world.
Now, we've spoken quite a bit there about illegal immigration, OK? What about the legal side of it, Sir John? For a lot of people at the next election, that's going to be a huge bone of contention for them because they're going to go into that election, by the looks and the sounds of it, with 2 major political parties in this country who aren't going to do anything about the legal numbers of immigration.
Well, I would like us to control the legal numbers rather more. I strongly take the view that we don't want to invite in a lot of people to take low-paid jobs and undercut our labour market. And whilst that may be cheap for the companies, it's not cheap for the taxpayers and the state. Because obviously if they're coming in for very low-paid jobs, there are big costs in providing subsidised housing and school places and medical care and all the other things they're going to need, which doesn't get weighed into the account. So I do think we need to have much more control on that and put more money behind productivity-raising measures, giving people the chance of a better paid job who are already settled here with more machine power and computing power at their elbows.
Well, I do suppose that the argument to that would be, look, Britain is a massively multicultural country. We've absolutely thrived off it. And we need low-skilled immigration to prop up our economy, don't we?
Well, certainly in my constituency we have lots of care homes who are able to recruit local people. Now, you could argue whether some of those people should be in work when they're on benefits, but they're desperate to get people. And it's not a cheap option for a company to bring people across. You've got to pay the health surcharge, you've got to pay the cost of the visas. Right. But without those, our elderly people would not be cared for at the present time. And that really needs
so again,
similarly with seasonal work, with agricultural
a kind of difference
work.
of attitude within the Conservative Party on that.
But I think there's some good work going on by the Employment Department, which we need to progress and put more resource behind, because there are hundreds of thousands of people of working age who might like a job, who might be able to do so with more support, who want a better rate of pay for understandable reasons. And I think we need to work on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we've covered quite a lot of ground here, really, which is when it comes to the ECHR, do you stay in, do you stay out? Is there a happy medium? Yes, there is. So, range of views there. When it comes to the legal immigration side, again, you're obviously kind of on the side where we want to bring this down, want to get people. There's no point importing a load of people who are going to do low-skilled jobs and maybe not be a net benefit to society. But then there is very much the other side of it as well, which is, we need people in these roles. I've got to ask you a slightly different question now, chaps, if that's OK. Look, would you welcome Nigel Farage back into the Conservative Party?
I know Nigel very well. I was a member of the European Parliament with him for 5 years, and Nigel could not be a member of any party that he wasn't the leader of, simple as that.
OK. So, OK. Whereas, no, you're not ruling it out entirely. I mean, that would be a drastic shift. What about you, Sir John? Would you be OK for Nigel to come back in?
I don't do hypothetical questions. If Nigel asks to join the Conservative Party, then ask me whether I think that's a good idea or not.
But he'd insist on being leader. He would only join a party if he could be leader, and there's no way he's going to be coming into the party, I don't think.
No, OK.
It's the Conservative Party is a team, and I know Nigel very well. He's not really a team player unless he can be the captain. OK, interesting. I asked that because obviously he is here. He's present. He's going to be doing his show here later. He's probably around the corner, actually. He's going to be doing his show here later on. Just one final one to you both. We can't get around the fact that the Conservative Party are, I think, by the best polling at the minute, 10 points behind. What are you doing wrong? We've had some very difficult situations in terms of the pandemic, followed by the energy crisis, and the government's had to spend a lot of money, which people agreed that we should, the furlough scheme, help with people's energy bills, and that's resulted in unprecedentedly high levels of tax, which instinctively we want to bring down. And the question is, can we do that before the election? And I think we should look at how we can reduce tax, particularly on those lowest paid, raising the tax threshold for the lowest paid, increasing the minimum wage, which I think the Chancellor's spoken about. So we do need to demonstrate we are a party of low tax.
Same question to you. I mean, what's going wrong?
Well, I agree that we can do more popular things, and I would say things have gone right in the last couple of weeks, because if you'd asked me that question 2 weeks ago, you'd have said we were 20 points behind. So I think as soon as you start talking and doing some things that are more popular and are authentically conservative, the disappointed Conservatives, and that's the problem we're talking about, start to say, well, all right, okay, we understand it. So I would encourage the Prime Minister to do more of all of that. And yes, we need targeted tax cuts to help the self-employed, help small businesses, to get our energy costs down a bit more. And they can be paid for. There are reductions in public spending, which we should be making, so that we don't have inflationary problems on the back of it.
Well, watch this space. Oh, very insightful conversation, both of you. Thank you very much.